The ship landed on the metal platform with a soft hum. Through the small window, Yuna could see the massive towers of the Galactic Academy reaching up into the purple sky. She had seen pictures before, but nothing had prepared her for the real thing. The buildings were made of some kind of white stone that seemed to glow from inside. Flying vehicles moved between the towers like busy insects. Everything was huge, beautiful, and completely alien. "We're really here," Taiho said from the seat next to her. He was grinning like a child on his birthday. "Can you believe it? The Galactic Academy. First humans ever." Yuna nodded but said nothing. She was too busy watching the creatures walking on the platforms below. There were so many different kinds. Some were tall with blue skin and long arms. Others were short and covered in fur. A few had wings. A few had too many legs. All of them moved with the confidence of people who belonged here. Humans did not belong here. Yuna knew this. Everyone knew this. Earth had only discovered faster than light travel 32 years ago. In galactic terms, humans were babies. They had no history in space, no great achievements, no reputation. They were the newest species to join the Galactic Union, and many older species thought they should have waited another 1,000 years before trying. But the Union had rules. Any species that achieved interstellar travel could send students to the Academy. 12 humans had been chosen from billions of applicants. Yuna was one of them. So was Taiho. The door of the ship opened and warm air rushed in. It smelled strange, like flowers and metal mixed together. Yuna grabbed her small bag and followed the other human students down the ramp. A tall alien was waiting for them at the bottom. It had gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes that looked like they were made of many smaller eyes stuck together. It wore a uniform that marked it as Academy staff. "Humans," the alien said. Its voice came from a small device on its chest that translated its words. "I am Administrator Keth. Welcome to the Galactic Academy. Follow me." Administrator Keth did not wait for them to respond. It simply turned and started walking. The humans hurried to keep up as they walked through the Academy grounds. Yuna noticed other students stopping to stare at them. Some whispered to each other. A few laughed. One large creature with scales and yellow eyes made a gesture that Yuna did not understand. But she could guess its meaning from the cruel smile on its face. "They don't like us much," Taiho said quietly. "Did you expect them to?" Yuna replied, "I hoped." Yuna did not hope. She had learned long ago that hope was a luxury. She had grown up in the rough parts of Bizen, where hoping got you hurt. You survived by being smart, being careful, and being ready. She had trained herself since she was 6 years old. Not because she wanted to fight, but because fighting came to her whether she wanted it or not. The Academy had accepted her because of her test scores and her psychological evaluation. She was calm under pressure, they said. She could think clearly when others panicked. These were useful traits for a diplomat or a scientist. They did not know about the other things she could do. The things she had learned in back alleys and underground gyms. The things that had kept her alive when bigger, stronger people wanted her dead. Administrator Keth led them to a large building that would be their home for the next 4 years. The rooms were small but clean. Each human student got their own space with a bed, a desk, and a window that looked out over the academy. "Classes begin tomorrow," Keth said. "Your schedules have been sent to your personal devices. Do not be late. The academy does not tolerate weakness." With that, the administrator left them alone. That night, the human students gathered in a common room to talk. There were 12 of them in total. 7 men, 5 women. They came from different countries on Earth, but here, those differences did not matter. They were all just humans now. "So what do you think?" asked a man named Jiho. He was older than most of them, nearly 30. with the look of someone who had seen hard times. "Think we can make it here?" "We have to," said a woman named Somi. She was short and round-faced with a quick smile. "We're representing all of humanity." "No pressure." Everyone laughed, but it was nervous laughter. Taiho was sitting next to Yuna. He leaned over and spoke quietly. "You've been quiet all day. You okay?" "I'm fine," Yuna said. "Just watching." "Watching what?" "Everything. Everyone. The way they look at us. The way they talk about us." She paused. "They think we're weak, aren't we?" Taiho asked. "I mean, compared to most of these species, that Varani we saw earlier was 3 meters tall. It could crush any of us with one hand." "Being big doesn't make you strong," Yuna said. Taiho frowned. "What do you mean?" But Yuna did not explain. She just went back to watching. The next morning, classes began. Yuna had 3 subjects: xenobiology, galactic history, and advanced combat theory. The first 2 were interesting, but not difficult. The teachers were professional and fair, even if some of the other students were not. But advanced combat theory was different. The class was taught by instructor Vrel, a Cathari warrior with 4 arms and those strange compound eyes. The Cathari were famous throughout the galaxy as the greatest fighters ever born. Their military academies were legendary. Their soldiers had never lost a major war. Vrel looked at the human students like they were insects that had crawled into his food. "So," he said on the first day, "these are the humans." He walked around them slowly, studying them with those many-eyed stares. Small, soft, no claws, no armor, no natural weapons of any kind. He stopped in front of Taiho, who was the tallest of the human males. "Tell me, human, how does your species fight?" Taiho straightened his back. "We use weapons, sir, tools, technology. And without those things, if you faced an enemy with just your body..." Taiho hesitated. "We adapt. We find ways." Vrel made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You find ways. How inspiring." He turned away. "Your species fights like prey animals. All instinct, no discipline. You run, you hide. You hope something bigger doesn't eat you. That is not combat. That is survival." He looked at all 12 humans with something like pity. "I do not expect any of you to pass this class, but you are welcome to try." Yuna said nothing. She just sat down, took out her notebook, and started writing. She had been underestimated her whole life. She was used to it, and she knew that underestimation was a weapon, if you knew how to use it. 3 weeks passed at the academy. The human students learned to navigate the massive campus, to understand the complex social rules between species, and to ignore the constant small insults that came their way. It was not easy, but they managed. Yuna kept to herself mostly. She attended classes, did her work, and spoke only when necessary. The other species barely noticed her. She was small, quiet, and forgettable. That was exactly how she wanted it. Taiho was different. He made friends easily. His smile was warm, his laugh was loud, and he genuinely liked meeting new people, even alien people who looked at him like he was something they had stepped in. He believed that kindness could break down walls. He believed that if he just tried hard enough, he could change how the galaxy saw humans. Yuna admired him for that. She also worried about him. Kindness was a beautiful thing, but it could also be a weakness. Some creatures did not understand kindness. Some creatures only understood strength. The Varani were such creatures. Doric was the worst of them. He was enormous, nearly 3 meters tall, with dark green scales that covered his body like armor. His eyes were yellow and cold, like the eyes of a predator. His family had been warriors for 20 generations. They had conquered planets, crushed rebellions, and built an empire on the broken bodies of weaker species. To Doric, Humans were not even worth hating. They were simply beneath notice. They were prey animals pretending to be people. He had been targeting the human students since the first week. Small things at first. Blocking doorways so they had to squeeze past him. Knocking their books from their hands. Making comments just loud enough for them to hear. "Look at the little humans," he would say to his Varani friends. "So cute, like pets." Taiho always kept his temper. He would smile, step aside, and refuse to react. But Yuna could see the anger building in him. It was like watching water heat up in a pot. Sooner or later, it would boil. The day it boiled was a Tuesday. Advanced Combat Theory was in session. Instructor Vrel was lecturing about hand-to-hand engagement protocols, explaining how different species approached close quarters fighting. It was actually interesting material, but the class was tense. The Varani students sat on one side, the humans on the other, with everyone else spread between them. Doric raised his hand. "Yes?" Vrel said. "Instructor, you speak of different fighting styles, but you have not discussed the humans." Doric's translator made his voice sound smooth, almost polite, that there was poison underneath. "Perhaps they could demonstrate for us. Show us how prey animals fight for survival." A few students laughed. Vrel's compound eyes flickered. For a moment, Yuna thought the instructor might shut this down. But instead, he tilted his head in what might have been amusement. "An excellent suggestion," Vrel said. "A practical demonstration would be educational. Which human would like to volunteer?" Nobody moved. The human students looked at each other nervously. Then Taiho stood up. "Taiho, no," Yuna whispered. She grabbed his arm, but he gently pulled away. "Someone has to," he said quietly. "Might as well be me." He walked down to the training circle in the center of the classroom. It was a flat area marked with lines, designed for sparring matches. Doric was already waiting there, his massive arms crossed over his chest, a cruel smile on his scaled face. "Brave little human," Doric said. "Or stupid. I cannot tell the difference with your species." Taiho did not respond. He just settled into a fighting stance, fists raised, feet planted. He was tall for a human, but next to Doric, he looked like a child. Instructor Vrel stepped back. "This is a demonstration only. No weapons. First to yield or first to be incapacitated loses." He paused. "Begin." Doric did not waste time. He moved forward with shocking speed for something so large. His fist came down like a hammer, aimed at Taiho's head. Taiho dodged, barely. He felt the wind of the blow as it passed his face. He threw a punch at Doric's midsection, putting all his strength behind it. His fist bounced off the Varani's scales like he had punched a stone wall. Pain shot up his arm. Before he could recover, Doric's knee caught him in the chest. The air exploded from his lungs. He stumbled backward, gasping. "Too slow," Doric said. "Too weak." Taiho charged again. He was angry now, letting his emotions control him. He threw punch after punch, aiming for Doric's face, his throat, anywhere that might be vulnerable. None of them landed. Doric blocked each attack with lazy contempt, like he was swatting away a fly. Then he grabbed Taiho by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Taiho kicked and struggled. But he might as well have been fighting a mountain. "This is humanity," Doric announced to the class, holding Taiho up like a trophy. "This is what happens when prey forgets its place." He threw Taiho to the ground. The human hit hard, rolling across the floor. Blood was streaming from his nose. His ribs felt broken. Doric walked over and placed his massive foot on Taiho's chest. He pressed down slowly, deliberately. The ribs that were bruised began to crack. "Yield," Doric commanded. Taiho could barely breathe. The pain was incredible, but he looked up at the Varani with hate in his eyes. "Go to hell," he spat. Dorek pressed harder. More cracks. Taiho screamed. I said yield, insect. The classroom was completely silent. The other students watched with the expressions of people observing something unfortunate but inevitable. The other humans looked horrified but did not move. What could they do? If they interfered, they would only join Taiho on the ground. Instructor Vrel watched with those compound eyes, making no move to stop what was happening. Yuna sat very still in her seat. She watched Taiho suffer. She watched Dorek smile. She watched the instructor do nothing. Something cold settled in her chest. It was not anger. Anger was hot and wild. This was different. This was ice. This was the feeling she got before very bad things happened. She stood up. The movement was so small, so quiet, that at first nobody noticed. Then, one by one, heads began to turn. I challenge, Yuna said. Her voice was soft, but in the silent room, it was like a gunshot. Dorek looked at her. His yellow eyes narrowed. What did you say, small one? Under Article 7 of Academy Combat Protocols, I invoke the right of continuation. Yuna began walking toward the training circle. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. The bout has not been officially ended. No victor has been declared. I am stepping in for my injured partner. The room buzzed with confusion. Students whispered to each other. Even Instructor Vrel seemed surprised. You are aware of what Article 7 means? Vrel asked. It removes all safety restrictions. Injury is permitted. Death is permitted. I am aware. You are smaller than the male human who just failed. What makes you think you can succeed where he could not? Yuna stopped at the edge of the circle. She looked at Vrel with no expression on her face. Are you going to let me fight? She said. Or are you going to keep talking? The room went completely still. Nobody spoke to a Kethari instructor that way. Nobody. Vrel stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he stepped back. Very well, he said. Dorek, you have a new opponent. Dorek released Taiho, who was immediately dragged to the side by Jiho and Somi. They looked at Yuna with wide, frightened eyes. Yuna, don't, Taiho gasped. He'll kill you. But Yuna was not listening anymore. She was already in the circle, rolling her shoulders, loosening her muscles. Her face was calm. Her eyes were empty. Dorek laughed. It was an ugly sound, like rocks grinding together. This is your champion? He said to the class. This tiny female? He spread his arms wide. Very well. I will try not to break too many of her bones. Yuna said nothing. She simply waited. The training circle was 15 meters across. White lines marked its boundaries. In the center stood Dorek, 3 meters of scaled muscle, a living weapon bred from generations of conquest. At the edge stood Yuna, barely reaching his chest, her black hair tied back, her hands hanging loose at her sides. Every student in the classroom was watching. Some were already preparing to leave, certain that this would be over in seconds. A Vorani warrior against a human female? It was not a fight. It was an execution. Instructor Vrel raised one of his 4 arms. This match is conducted under Article 7. There are no restrictions. The match ends when one combatant yields, is incapacitated, or is killed. He paused. Understood? Dorek nodded, already grinning. Yuna nodded, her face still empty. Begin. Dorek exploded forward. He was fast, terrifyingly fast for something so massive. His clawed hand swept toward Yuna in a strike that had crushed skulls and shattered bones. Countless times before. Yuna was not there. She had moved the instant he did. Sliding to the left, her feet barely making a sound on the floor. Dorek's claws cut through empty air. Before he could turn, something hit his knee. It was not a punch. It was not a kick. It was something stranger, a precise strike with the edge of her palm that found the exact spot where the scales were thinnest, where the joint was most vulnerable. The impact made a sound like a branch breaking. Doric stumbled. His leg, which had never failed him in his entire life, suddenly could not hold his weight properly. Pain shot through the joint, sharp and unfamiliar. He turned with a roar, swinging both arms in a wide arc that would have torn a human in half. But again, Yuna was not there. She had ducked under his arms and was now behind him, moving like water, like shadow. Her elbow drove into the base of his skull. This was another weak point, one that few people knew about. Varani's scales did not cover this spot properly. The bone beneath was thin, the nerves beneath it sensitive. The impact was not hard enough to kill, but it was enough to make Doric's vision blur. He staggered forward, barely keeping his balance. What was happening? How was this possible? This tiny creature, this insignificant prey animal, was hurting him. Him, a warrior of the Varani, whose family had conquered worlds. He turned again, slower this time, more careful. The grin was gone from his face. His yellow eyes were wide with something he had never felt before in combat.fear.yun. I stood a few meters away, watching him. She was not even breathing hard. Her expression had not changed at all. She looked at him the way a scientist might look at an interesting insect. How? Doric growled. How are you doing this? She did not answer. She simply waited for him to attack again. In the watching crowd, Taiho was being held up by Jiho and Somi. His ribs were badly damaged, but he refused to leave. He stared at Yuna with an expression of complete shock. What is she? Somi whispered. What the hell is she? Taiho did not answer. He could not. He had known Yuna for 3 weeks. They had talked, eaten meals together, studied together. He had thought she was just a quiet, smart girl from Korea. He had never imagined anything like this. Doric attacked again. This time he was more cautious, keeping his guard up, using his long arms to control the distance between them. He threw a careful jab, testing her reactions. Yuna deflected it with her forearm, redirecting the force rather than trying to stop it. The movement was so smooth, so efficient, that it almost looked like she had practiced it 1,000,000 times. She had. Another jab. Another deflection. Doric was getting frustrated now. He could not hit her. Every time he threw a strike, she was somewhere else, always one step ahead, always reading his movements before he made them. Stand still! He roared. She did not respond. She just kept moving, circling him, watching him with those empty eyes. Then she went on the attack. It was like watching a storm. She moved in close, inside his reach, where his long arms were useless. Her fists and elbows found every vulnerable point on his body. The soft tissue under his arms, the nerve clusters at his hips, the tendons at his ankles. Each strike was small, precise, and devastating. Doric tried to grab her, to crush her with his superior strength, but she slipped away every time. It was like trying to catch smoke. He swung wildly, desperately, but hit nothing. The pain was building. Each small strike seemed minor, but together they were breaking him down. His knee was weak. His arms were slow. His vision kept blurring from the blow to his skull. What are you? He gasped. Yuna spoke for the first time since the fight began. Her voice was calm, quiet, almost gentle. I am human. She ducked under another swing and drove her knee into the nerve cluster at his hip. Doric screamed, a sound that no one in the room had ever heard from a Varani warrior. His leg buckled, and he fell to one knee. Around the training circle, the watching students were silent. They could not believe what they were seeing. A Varani warrior, one of the most feared species in the galaxy, was being defeated by a creature half his size. Instructor Vrel had not moved since the fight began. His compound eyes were fixed on Yuna with an intensity that was hard to read. Was it anger? Surprise? Respect? Dorek tried to stand, but his injured leg would not support him. He looked up at Yuna, his yellow eyes filled with confusion and pain. "This is impossible," he said. "Your species has no warriors, no combat tradition. You are not built for fighting. You have no claws, no armor, no venom. What are you? What are you?" Yuna stood over him. For the first time, something changed in her expression. It was not anger. It was not satisfaction. It was something deeper, something older. "Do you want to know the truth about humans?" She asked. He did not answer. He was too afraid to answer. "We are not strong," she said. "Not compared to most species. We are not fast. We have no natural weapons. You are right about all of that." She moved closer, her shadow falling over him. "But we have been fighting since before we had language. When we lived in caves, we hunted creatures 10 times our size. We killed predators with rocks and sticks and our bare hands. We did not survive because we were strong. We survived because we learned." Her hand reached out and gripped the crest on his head, forcing him to look at her. "Every technique I have used against you tonight was developed by humans over thousands of years. We learned where bodies are weak. We learned how to turn strength against itself. We learned how to break things that should not be breakable." She leaned close, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You train for combat. You practice, you exercise, you compete. But for us, combat is not training. It is survival. Our ancestors killed everything that tried to kill them, and they passed that knowledge down to us. It is written in our blood, in our bones, in every cell of our bodies." She released his crest and stepped back. "That is what I am," she said. "That is what we all are. And you never even knew." Dorek stared at her. For the first time in his life, he understood what prey animals felt when they looked at a predator. The fight was not over yet. But in that moment, everyone in the room knew how it would end. Dorek was on his knees, but he was not defeated yet. Pain burned through his body from a dozen small wounds, but his pride burned hotter. He was a Varani warrior. His ancestors had crushed civilizations. He would not lose to this tiny creature. He would not die with a roar that shook the walls. He pushed himself up on his one good leg. His injured knee screamed in protest, but he forced it to work. He would fight standing. He would die standing if necessary. That was the Varani way. The students watching drew back. Even injured, Dorek was terrifying. His scales were slick with purple blood from his wounds. His yellow eyes blazed with desperate fury. His claws extended fully, each one sharp enough to cut through metal. "You think you have won?" He snarled at Yuna. "You have only made me angry." Yuna watched him rise. Her expression did not change. She simply adjusted her stance, shifting her weight slightly, preparing for whatever came next. "I have not won yet," she agreed. "You have not yielded, and I never will. I am Varani. We do not surrender to prey. Then we continue." Dorek charged. It was not elegant or careful. It was pure rage given form. 3 meters of wounded predator throwing everything it had left into one final assault. His claws swept through the air in deadly arcs, each swing capable of tearing a human apart. Yuna moved like she had been born for this moment. She slipped under the first swing, close enough to feel the wind of it on her face. Her palm struck his injured knee again, exactly where she had hit it before. The joint made a terrible sound and buckled completely. Dorek fell forward, his momentum carrying him past her. Before he could catch himself, she was on his back. Her legs wrapped around his midsection. Her arms snaked around his throat, finding the gap in his scales, pressing against the artery that carried blood to his brain. Dorek thrashed wildly, trying to throw her off. He was still so much stronger than her. His hands reached back, claws grabbing for her body. One of them caught her shoulder, drawing blood, but she did not let go. "Get off me," he screamed. "Get off." Yuna said nothing. She just squeezed tighter. Her arm pressed harder against his throat. Seconds passed. Darik's movements became slower, weaker. His brain was running out of oxygen. "Yield," Yuna said calmly. "Yield and I will let you live." "Never," Darik gasped. "Never yield to human." She squeezed harder. His vision was going dark around the edges. His lungs burned for air that was not coming. He had seconds left before he lost consciousness. After that, she could kill him easily. Just hold on a little longer, and his brain would die. "Last chance," Yuna said. "Yield." For a long moment, there was silence. Doric's body shuddered. His pride warred with his survival instinct. Everything he had been taught, everything he believed, told him that surrender was worse than death. But he did not want to die. "I yield," he whispered. Yuna released him immediately. She rolled off his back and stood up, stepping away from his fallen body. Blood dripped from the wound on her shoulder, but she ignored it. Darik lay on the ground, gasping for breath. His whole body was shaking. Purple blood pooled around him from his many wounds. He looked broken in a way that had nothing to do with his physical injuries. The classroom was completely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They had just witnessed the impossible. Then, slowly, Instructor Vrel stepped forward. His compound eyes studied Yuna with an expression that might have been wonder. "The match is over," he announced. "The human is victorious." Still, nobody moved. Yuna turned and walked toward her injured classmates. Taiho was staring at her with his mouth open. Jiho and Somi looked like they had seen a ghost. The other human students were frozen in shock. "You're hurt," Somi said finally, pointing at Yuna's shoulder. Yuna glanced at the wound. It was bleeding steadily, but it was not deep. "I'll be fine." "Yuna," Taiho said. His voice was rough from pain and emotion. Where did you learn?" "Later," Yuna said. "Right now we need to get you to the medical center. Your ribs are broken." She helped Jiho support Taiho's weight, and together they began walking toward the door. The other students parted before them like water. A few minutes ago, those same students had looked at the humans with contempt. Now they looked at them with something very different as they passed Instructor Vrel. The Ketheri spoke. "Human," he said. "Wait." Yuna stopped but did not turn around. "What you did today," Vrel said slowly. "I have taught combat for 40 years. I have trained warriors from 100 species. I have never seen a student do what you just did." He paused. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Yuna was quiet for a moment. Then she turned her head, just enough to meet Vrel's compound eyes. "On Earth," she said. "We call it survival." She turned back and continued walking. The other humans followed her, leaving the classroom behind. Behind them, Darik still lay on the ground. Medical drones were approaching to treat his wounds, but he did not seem to notice them. He just stared at the ceiling with empty eyes, trying to understand what had happened to him. He had been the predator his entire life. Everything in the galaxy was smaller than him, weaker than him, afraid of him. He had never questioned his place at the top. Now, in less than 10 minutes, a human had shown him the truth. He was not at the top of anything. He was just another creature in a universe full of creatures. And some of those creatures were more dangerous than they appeared. Far more dangerous. In the hallway outside the classroom, Taiho finally found his voice again. "Yuna," he said, "I've known you for 3 weeks. We've eaten together, studied together, talked about our lives. How did I not know about any of this?" Yuna kept walking. Because I did not tell you. But why? This is incredible. You could have told everyone. You could have shown them on day one what humans can do. And then what? Yuna asked. They would have studied me, prepared for me, found ways to counter what I can do. She shook her head. Being underestimated is a weapon, Taiho. The best weapon humans have ever had. They reached the medical center and helped Taiho onto a bed. Doctors of various species rushed over to examine him, their scanners beeping as they assessed his injuries. Somi sat down heavily in a chair. I can't believe what I just saw, she said. I still can't believe it. You took down a Varani warrior, one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. And you made it look easy. It was not easy, Yuna said quietly. I just made it look that way. But how? How is any of that possible? Yuna was silent for a moment. She looked out the window of the medical center, at the alien sky and the alien buildings, and all the alien people who had spent weeks treating humans like they were nothing. Do you know how old humanity is? She asked finally. About 300,000 years, Jiho said. That's what they taught us in history class. 300,000 years, Yuna repeated. And for most of that time, we were not the strongest things on our planet. We were not the fastest. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor. Everything was trying to kill us. Other animals, the weather, each other. She paused. But we survived. We did not just survive. We won. We became the dominant species on a world that was trying to murder us every single day. She turned back to face her classmates. Every alien species we have met became powerful because they were born that way. Strong bodies, natural weapons, long lifespans. They did not have to struggle. They did not have to learn. Power was given to them. Her eyes were cold and hard. Humans earned our power. We took it from a universe that wanted us dead. And we will never let anyone take it from us. The medical center was quiet. The alien doctors had stopped what they were doing to listen. Everyone was staring at Yuna. So yes, she said, I can fight. Most humans can, if they have to. We carry 300,000 years of war in our blood. Every culture on Earth has martial arts, combat techniques, ways to kill with our bare hands. Because that is who we are. That is what we evolved to be. She sat down next to Taiho's bed. The galaxy thinks we are new. They think we are weak. They think we are prey. A small, cold smile crossed her face. Let them think that. It makes it easier for us when the time comes. Nobody said anything for a long time. Finally, Taiho reached out and took her hand. Thank you, he said quietly. You saved my life in there. Yuna looked at him. For just a moment, the coldness in her eyes softened. You are my friend, she said simply. That is what friends do. Outside, the alien sun was setting, painting the purple sky in shades of orange and gold. Somewhere in the academy, rumors were already spreading about what had happened in Instructor Rel's class. The galaxy was about to learn something new about humanity, and not everyone was going to like what they learned. The news spread through the Galactic Academy like fire through dry grass. By the next morning, everyone had heard some version of what happened. A human female had defeated a Varani warrior in single combat. She had done it without weapons, without armor, without anything but her bare hands and her strange, terrible knowledge of how to break bodies. Some did not believe it. They said it must be exaggerated, a story that grew bigger with each telling. But there was video. Academy security cameras had recorded everything. Within hours, that video was being shared across the entire campus. Yuna became famous overnight. She did not want fame. She wanted to be invisible again, to go back to being the quiet girl who sat in the back and took notes. But that was impossible now. When she walked through the halls, everyone stared. Some looked at her with respect. Some looked at her with fear. A few looked at her with hatred. The Varani students were especially angry. Doric had been one of their best, and his defeat was a humiliation that they felt deeply. They gathered in groups and spoke in low voices, their yellow eyes tracking Yuna whenever she passed. 3 days after the fight, Yuna was summoned to Instructor Vrel's office. The Kethari sat behind a desk made of some dark material that might have been wood or might have been bone. His 4 arms were folded across his chest. His compound eyes watched Yuna as she entered and sat down across from him. "You wanted to see me, Instructor?" Vrel nodded slowly. "I have been reviewing the video of your fight with Doric. I have watched it many times. I still do not fully understand what I saw." Yuna said nothing, waiting for him to continue. "You are not enhanced," Vrel said. "I checked your medical records. No genetic modifications, no cybernetic implants, no performance drugs. You are completely natural. Just a standard human body." He leaned forward. "How is this possible? How did you defeat a Varani warrior with a standard human body?" "I told you in class," Yuna said. "Humans evolved for combat. It is what we are. But there must be more to it than that. Your techniques, your movements, they were not random. They were precise, practiced. You knew exactly where to strike, exactly how much force to use. That kind of knowledge does not come from evolution alone." Yuna was quiet for a moment. Then she made a decision. "On Earth," she said, "we have thousands of martial arts. Different countries, different cultures, different styles. But they all have one thing in common. They teach you how to use a human body as a weapon." She held up her hand and made a fist. "This hand can break bones if I hit the right spot with the right angle. This elbow can crack ribs. These fingers can crush a throat or destroy an eye. Every part of my body can kill if I know how to use it." She lowered her hand. "I started training when I was 6 years old. I trained every day for 13 years. I learned from dozens of teachers. I fought hundreds of opponents. I won some fights. I lost some fights. But I always learned." She met Vrel's compound eyes. "That is what humans do, Instructor. We learn, we adapt, we get better, and we never, ever stop." Vrel was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Softer, almost respectful. "I owe you an apology," he said. Yuna blinked. This was not what she had expected. An apology? When humans first came to this academy, I believed what everyone else believed. That you were a primitive species, not ready for the galactic stage. I thought you were prey animals pretending to be predators." He shook his head, a gesture that looked strange with his alien anatomy. "I was wrong. I have been teaching combat for 40 years, and I was completely, utterly wrong about your species." "You were not alone," Yuna said. "Everyone thinks that about us." "Yes, and that is perhaps your greatest advantage." Vrel stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the academy sprawled across the landscape, beautiful and alien. "I have already received messages from several governments asking about you. They want to know more about human combat capabilities. Some of them are concerned." "Concerned?" "Afraid," Vrel clarified. "They saw what you did to Doric, and they are afraid of what else humans might be capable of." He turned back to face her. "I told them nothing. What you choose to reveal about your species is not my decision to make." Yuna stood up. "Thank you, Instructor. Was there anything else?" "Just one thing." Vrel walked around his desk and stood in front of her. Even bent slightly, he towered over her. "Doric's family has demanded justice. They say you used excessive force, that you humiliated their son beyond what was necessary. He had a chance to yield. He chose to keep fighting." "I know." But Varani do not accept defeat well. They will try to hurt you, perhaps kill you. I cannot protect you if they act outside Academy grounds. Yuna nodded slowly. I understand. Do you? The Varani are vengeful and patient. They will wait for the right moment. It might be weeks or months or years, but they will come for you eventually. Then I will be ready, Yuna said simply. I always am. She turned and walked toward the door. Before she reached it, Rel spoke again. One more thing, he said. Doric's arm. The medical report says you broke every joint from his shoulder to his fingertips. The doctors were able to repair the damage, but they said it would have been very painful. Very slow, very deliberate. He paused. Why did you do that? Yuna stopped with her hand on the door. She did not turn around. He would not yield, she said quietly. I gave him the chance. I asked him twice. He refused because his pride would not let him surrender to a human. She was silent for a moment. So I taught him a lesson. I showed him what humans do to enemies who will not stop fighting. I showed him that there are prices for pride. And I showed everyone watching that humans are not prey. You could have simply choked him unconscious. Yes, but then he would not have learned. And neither would anyone else. Now Yuna did turn around, and her eyes were cold. Do you think the Varani will forget what happened? Do you think any species that watched that video will forget? They will remember. When they look at humans now, they will remember what happened to Doric, and they will think twice before they threaten us again. Varel studied her with those compound eyes. You were sending a message. Humans have a saying, Yuna said. Walk softly, but carry a big stick. We prefer peace. We do not look for fights. But when fights come to us, we finish them. Completely. So that they never happen again. She opened the door. That is what humans are, instructor. That is what we have always been. And that is what we will always be. She walked out and closed the door behind her dot in the hallway outside. Taiho was waiting. His ribs had been healed by the Academy's advanced medical technology, but he still moved carefully, as if expecting pain. How did it go? He asked. Fine, Yuna said. He wanted to understand. I helped him understand. They walked together through the Academy halls. Students still stared, but now they kept their distance. Word had spread not just about the fight, but about the aftermath. About what Yuna had done to Doric's arm. About the cold, systematic way she had destroyed it. They reached the outdoor courtyard, where the other human students were gathered. Jiho, Somi, and the rest looked up as Yuna and Taiho approached. So, Jiho said, what happens now? Are we safe? Or are we in more danger than ever? Yuna looked around at her fellow humans. 12 people from Earth, surrounded by thousands of aliens who had never taken them seriously before. The universe was vast and dangerous, and full of species that were stronger, faster, and more powerful than them. But humans had faced worse. They had faced ice ages and predators and diseases in each other. They had survived everything the universe had thrown at them. They would survive this too. We are the same as we have always been, Yuna said. Small, soft, apparently harmless. A thin smile crossed her face. But now they know the truth. They know what we can do when we have to. And that knowledge will protect us better than any armor. She sat down among her classmates. Just another student at the most prestigious academy in the galaxy. Behind her quiet eyes. 300,000 years of human history watched and waited. The galaxy had started to understand something important about the new species called humanity. They learned fast. They fought hard. They never gave up. And when pushed too far, they did not just defeat their enemies. They destroyed them, without mercy. As the alien sun set over the academy towers, casting long shadows across the courtyard, Yuna closed her eyes and let herself rest. Tomorrow there would be more challenges, more enemies, more tests. But she was human. And humans always found a way.